All right, hello wine drinking people. Today is Tuesday, the 12th of July. Finishing up another great week here. Last week we had our vintage Brunello tasting here in the store on Friday night. And I'm here to tell you some awesome wines, including the 1995 Gianfranco Soldera in Testi Reserve Brunello 1995, which was our old dog. It just goes to show you, man, these wines can last a very long time. This wine is still quite young. The 2006 vintage in Brunello being the topic on most people's agenda because that is the current release. But, hey, we like to do a lot of research here at the Wine Watch. And you know what I always say? Always drink the good stuff first. And that is exactly what we did on this evening. We started out with the old dog, the 1995 Gianfranco Soldera wine, and it was fabulous. I opened these wines up at about 4 o'clock to get them resuscitating. And if you look at the vintage charts, 1995, not so highly regarded by the Wine Spectator, by the Wine Advocate. But if you look at the Italian Wine Bible, the Gambero Rosso, 5 stars, baby. Their highest rating, a classic vintage. And one to me that still has got some legs. Some of the best wines from 1995, like this Gianfranco Soldera wine, still has years ahead of it. So even though it may have been, still some potential, this was the last bottle I had. And rather than sell the last bottle of a great wine like this, one of the things that I want to do when I acquire something like this is drink it. So we put on a tasting so we could enjoy the Soldera here for one last time. And, we had the 96 Madonna del Piano, also one of my favorite wines. Really good when it was opened up, but started to fade a little bit. 96, not a great vintage, but still an excellent, most excellent wine when first opened. And then the first flight, we rounded that out with the Gianni Brunelli, a small producer, a restaurateur from Tuscany, making most excellent wines. And then the 2000 vintage Poggio di Sotto, which 2000, not a great vintage, but hey, that was a couple people's favorite wine in that first flight. Maybe not wine of the night, but I think we sold more of that wine than any wine on the table. The 1995 Soldera Reserve in Testi, which this is one of his vineyards. Gianfranco Soldera has 2, Casi Bassa and Intesti, and the Intesti name has been used as a Rosso di Montalcino. It's a little confusing looking back through the years of Gianfranco Soldera, how he's labeled his wines, but let me assure you, this was his $450 Intesti Reserve in 1995, not the Rosso. And the wine of the night, in my opinion, this wine still had years ahead of it. A lovely fresh earth, old saddle leather, truffle, exotic spice, and earth nuance on the nose. Still a bit tightly wound on the palate, but starting to open up really nice after it had been there for a couple of hours in the glass. Some lovely light red cherry fruit on the finish, and a really nice savoriness. A very balanced style of Brunello, really elegant and most excellent juice. Still a very long finish, some life ahead of this wine, still in your cellar. 96 Madonna, as I mentioned before, tended to fall off a little bit at the end of the night, but had some lovely black truffles, spices, tar, and fresh earth, expressive on the nose with that wild dark strawberry fruit showing up, and some dried meats, kind of some beef stew aromas coming out at the end there. But still quite dense and rich on the palate with wonderful acidity and depth. And as I mentioned before, showing better after it was first opened than at the end of the night. All right, Gianni Brunelli, 1999, a lovely hand of dark spice with this, some tar, some classic Brunello aromas, dried meats, porcini mushrooms, and some nice cherry fruit here shining through on the nose. Drinking beautifully right now, 99, a classic vintage from Montalcino. Still has some time and some tannin left to develop further in the bottle, though. Really most excellent juice. The Poggio di Sotto 2000, really soft. This lovely wild strawberry fruit, forward seductive rose petals, very pretty bouquet, silky on the palate, drinking at or near its peak right now. Really beautiful stuff, very exotic spice coming through on the nose, on the finish there. 2001, quite a bit bigger in size, as this vintage was a great vintage, very classic. Tea and red licorice spice to that red cherry and wild strawberry fruit, aromas of porcini mushroom, sweet red cherry fruit in the tongue, silky smooth on the palate with notes of that red licorice spice coming through on the finish, and that fresh floral kind of rose petal note. San Filippo Brunello, another one of my picks for the values of the night. This wine, like a lot of wines from Brunello, you can find for under $60 a bottle. Older vintage wine, ready to drink, man. What a great value. This wine had lovely black spices and tar dominating the nose with notes of smoke, black cherry, exotic spices. A little bit more forward and seductive than the Reserve. showing some lovely fruit and some lovely silky tannins, nice and elegant finish, and black truffle showing through there at the end too. San Filippo Reserve Le Coste. This estate was founded in 72, so kind of the second wave of Brunellos. The first wine was 77. Roberto Gianelli now owns the property. Fairly earthy bouquet there with dried mushrooms, wild strawberry-like fruit, black tar, porcinis. Really nice complexity on the nose there. Still quite firm, the tannins on the tongue. A good deal of that earth and some lovely spice on the finish. Very well-endowed wine. Still has some years ahead of it. And then the Licini, the young guy and the dog. The Ugolaya, the single vineyard wine from them. Wow. This wine just explosive palate, beautiful, even immediately right after opening. It's been in the Licini family since the 1700s, so one of the classic old-school producers here. The winemaker is a living legend of Tuscany, Giulio Gambelli, and man, 1,000-foot elevation, this vineyard, one of the higher vineyards in Montalcino. Dried mushroom, fresh dusty earth, pine, some barnyard-like aromas showing to that red cherry and light berry fruit. Very ripe and seductive on the palate. This wine's got some lovely fruit, some wonderful structure here, some bright acidity, really long finish, most excellent juice, but this 04 is going to need a little time. All right, well, great stuff. Oh, I almost forgot about the Fantoti, the extra. You know, we always open up something sweet for dessert here. We had the Vinsanto from Fantoti. Almost every producer in Tuscany makes a Vinsanto, the wine of saints. One of the more ambiguous wines in Tuscany, though, because you can make it from red wine, you can make it from white wine. This one's 100% Sangiovese. You can make it in Tuscany, you can make it in Umbria, you can make it in various areas in Italy. So it's more of a style of production, and they keep this in barrique for 5 years. As I mentioned, this is 100% Sangiovese. Some lovely kind of nutty aromas coming out with this. An oxidized style of wine, something you would have with biscotti at the end of a meal. And some lovely sweetness, though, to this wine. And not so much of a honey character like you get in Sauternes, but more of a kind of a date and fig, dried fruit character. And again, some lovely nuts and some allspice coming through there. Excellent juice. One of my favorite dessert wines, Vinsanto from Fantoti. And that's what I had to drink yesterday, folks. I'm your host, Andrew Lampasoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying, remember, always drink the good stuff first.